Cosatu says it hopes the seizure of assets of former Steinhoff CEO Markus Jooste by the South African Reserve Bank will be extended to all his associates. Jooste is accused of contravening the exchange control regulations. Now, the Trade Union Federation says it is critical that the Public Investment Corporation intensify its efforts to ensure that the workers' pensions and insurance funds that it entrusted to invest are safe. For more on this, we're joined now by the spokesperson of Cosatu, Sizwe Pamla. Mr. Pamla, good morning to you. Let's start with your reaction to the seizure of these assets. You issued a statement yesterday. What is it that you would like to see happen next?
Well, firstly, we have to say we are happy to see that the Reserve Bank has taken action against Mr. Jooste. Like we have said, what we would like to see going forward is this being extended to include all his enablers, those people who look the other way or who actually worked with him to run down Steinhoff as a company.
Yeah.
And having said that, we also appreciate that this comes from the Reserve Bank, meaning that he is being dealt with by the Reserve Bank for the crime that he has committed when it comes to foreign exchange regulations. He is yet to be held accountable for the real crime of looting taxpayers' money and running down a company through corrupt means.
Well, let's pick up on that very point you make, that this is the Reserve Bank leg of what it sees as a violation of the regulations as far as the foreign exchange controls are concerned. There is the element, the obvious element of law enforcement, and this is where you are coming out very strongly against the National Prosecuting Authority. In fact, you use the words that they are in slumber and they have been sleepwalking. Why do you say this?
Well, look, if you look at when this case happened in 2017, the looting of Steinhoff. And years later, we haven't heard anything from the Hawks. We have not heard anything from the Asset Forfeiture Unit. We have not heard anything from the NPA and the SAPS in general. This is worrying because this is one of the biggest corruption scandals that this country has ever faced. Billions of investor money, including workers' money, were looted and mismanaged by Mr. Jooste working with his cronies. The fact that our law enforcement institutions have not lifted a finger to hold him accountable. I mean, in all of these years, they have allowed him to keep his assets. And now we are not even sure that what is left is really everything that he had when this scandal happened in 2017. There's a real possibility that he has disposed of some of his assets and he has used the last couple of years to hide some of his assets, not just in South Africa, but around the world. That on its own is a big concern. And the revival of the Hawks, of the NPA, that we were promised, it seems to be stillborn. Because how is it possible that someone was investigated and where everyone agrees that this individual was using corrupt means to enrich himself and his friends, is yet to be arrested, is yet to be charged. His assets have not been attached by the Asset Forfeiture Unit. This is really should be a big concern for South Africans, especially because we are still waiting to hear what is the plan when it comes to implementing the recommendations of the Zondo Commission. If it's going to take half a decade for the Hawks to deal with Mr. Jooste, if they will ever deal with him at all, then how long will it take for them to actually deal with the hundreds and thousands of individuals implicated in the Zondo Commission report?
Mr. Pamla, the Hawks will or may just come out and say you're being unfair on them because they have explained themselves that there is capacity constraints when it comes to investigating complex crimes, but those that they are able to tackle that are not so complicated, and one case in point is the arrest of the alleged mastermind behind a syndicate that is reportedly linked to the theft of oil at Transnet. That person was arrested yesterday. They will say, but this is proof that we are working. The amount, by the way, that is involved here, the amount of oil that has been stolen by this individual or this syndicate, the understanding is that 8.5 million liters of fuel valued at over 100 million was stolen or has been stolen over time from Transnet. So I'm just using this as an example to say the Hawks are going to say, in our defense, we are doing the work where we have capacity to do that.
No, that's not enough because imagine if in your workplace you will be given a task of ensuring that you investigate and you hold corrupt people to account. And then you come back, you say, I have one example of success, and I have hundreds and thousands cases where I have not done enough or I have not done anything for that matter. So remember, South Africa is sinking under the weight of corruption. And we are spending billions and millions on commissions of inquiry to try to tackle this corruption. And we have been told that spending this money is the right thing to do because as soon as we have the information, the institutions like the Hawks, NPA and others will take the baton and run with it. Now, what is the message that we are sending to taxpayers who have spent money on commissions of inquiry, not just the Zondo Commission? We have had a number of these commissions investigating corruption in this country. So when you have a problem of corruption, what you want is to have the confidence in the institutions that not only are they capable, but that they are busy ensuring that they hold those who are responsible for corruption to account. So it is not enough. If we are going to be given one case every decade, and then we allow all the other cases to just disappear without anyone actually updating us or giving us information, then we're in big trouble as a country. Let's have a conversation of what is wrong with the Hawks. If it's the resources, then the government has to address that. We have a midterm budget policy statement that is coming next week or in the next 2 weeks. We should be hearing from government how are they planning to make sure that the Hawks have adequate resources. If people need to be trained, because some of these commercial crimes are very complicated, let's then look for that kind of expertise that the Hawks lacks and make sure that we employ people who are well trained or we train people who are there so that we can fight battle against corruption. If you go back to the issue of cartel behavior, for example, in South Africa, government literally gave up on holding those companies accountable. What government ended up doing was to say, you are all invited to come and confess your sins. If you confess, we will take 10% of your net, not gross, of your net profit, and then we'll all move on. Now, how many people, those who are at the bottom end of the economic pyramid, have been sent to prison for theft, for crimes, but crimes that are less than the crimes that have been committed by those at the top? Yeah. Because if our institutions and our judiciary is geared towards holding the poor and the weak, and it is unable or is unwilling to hold the powerful, we are in big trouble as a country.
Mr. Pamla, I'm out of time. But I'm going to go back to your target. And I say they are your target because that's who the statement identified as sleepwalking on the job. And that's the NPA. If you had a message for Shamila Batoy, it's not the first time that Cosatu or even the SACP raises concern about the slow pace of arresting people and, more importantly, getting convictions. And I will lump them with the Hawks because we are often told that they are investigating prosecution-led investigations. Okay? This means that they're working together with the Hawks because of, I guess, the capacity constraints. You're trying to, therefore, kill two birds with one stone so that these cases, whilst investigated by the police, but when they get to court, they don't collapse. What would your message be, a singular message, to the head of the NPA, Shamila Batoy?
Well, is that to tell us as citizens, why is it that you are unable to hold these people accountable? You are unable to prosecute them and send them to prison. Because if you don't tell us why you are not able to do this, our conclusion is that you are unwilling to do it. If you are overwhelmed, maybe you felt as soon as you took over that you a bit more than you could chew, tell us so that we can step aside and as a country we can look for the next best person who can take this fight forward. What we cannot afford is to be told that things are changing, yet every day we wake up to scandals where people are not being held accountable. We do sympathize with to a certain extent with these institutions because they are budget cuts. But none of them have come out to say it's because of budget cuts. We are just making assumptions. So we want them to be transparent and to be open with us as South Africans, because the only thing we can end up doing is to conclude that they are not doing their job or they are just unwilling to hold the powerful accountable.
Sizwe, Pamla, thank you very much for your time. Cosatu spokesperson there. All right, that